Well, that is perfect. Welcome, everybody, to the good, the bad, and the ugly of Omni Channel Marketing. I do have to say that I learned more about Omni Channel Marketing from that short video than I have in many years. Welcome to the Auto Hub Show. Some of the things that we do in our beginning as people log in, we talk about all sorts of great stuff and run our short little video, which this time has actually been very informative versus just entertaining. And I'm Jeff Polo, and we have Ian Nethercott, my co-host, and many people joining us there. Before we get started, the business of the show is just a reminder that the views and opinions expressed on the Auto Hub Show are those of our guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Auto Hub Show or Ian Nethercott and Jeff Polo, etc., etc., etc. So as our guests speak, it's all on them as we pass the buck. The Auto Shub Ho is for the guests, not us. It's your show. As much fun as we have on it, it should be a good experience for everybody involved. Please mute and unmute yourselves as you speak for the guests, unless you're very good like Ian and I in keeping quiet and you don't have anything in the background making noise. You can click raise your hand if you have questions, and we have a chat box open. That throw your questions in there. Ian or myself will bring them up to the speakers. Share all your ideas and respect everybody's time. We got a lot of experience today. We got a ton of experience on board, and everybody, all of our participants have agreed to be open and sharing of their ideas and are okay with others using them. Next slide, Ian.
Yep, one sec.
And of course, as we always say, nobody's trying to sell you today. Now, come Friday, we have the Vendor Speak show with many of our vendors get to present their themselves, their products, their services, and hopefully sell you lots and lots of stuff. We value everybody's opinions here, so please speak up and bring value. And of course, don't be afraid to brainstorm, ask questions. And of course, we do our best to stay on topic when you've got two people like Ian and I who have very short attention spans. We tend to get a little bit off crazy. And of course, we ask that you challenge our speakers in a polite way. We did have one show where somebody got extra challenging and we had to deem them not worthy. And as we continue on, we have a great show today, which is the good, the bad, and ugly of Omni Channel Marketing. And I have now just lost there. Sorry. Joining us today are four extremely dynamic individuals. We have David Steinberg, the CEO of 4 Eyes in Portland, Oregon. David, could just give us a few comments, tell us a very short bit about yourself, your company, and.
I'm David Steinberg, a longtime entrepreneur. This is 4 Eyes is my fourth business, but 4 Eyes uses all of the data that your website captures, all of the pricing and inventory data to really help drive better sales outcomes. Where our focus is on delivering that to salespeople and helping use that data traditionally where you've used it for marketing to actually empower your salespeople. So it's we've been around for about 5 years. We're currently on over 4,000 automotive websites, so our footprint is rapidly growing, and I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you for attending. Just joining us a little bit later than the other guests is Jason Silberberg, the CEO of Nabthat, the really incredible website company which we know about. Jason, can you, as long as you're hooked up and ready to go, just give us a few comments. Tell us a little about yourself and your company.
Muted right now. So give me a sec.
No problem.
Had it on in a hotel traveling. Yeah, so I mean, we're big believers in creating products that are consumer facing. You know, at the end of the day, dealers are, you know, they're end users, a consumer. We build products for the consumer. I think we kind of have a different approach to what other companies are doing in the automotive space. So thank you for having us, and looking forward to contributing to the Auto Hub community.
Well, thank you for attending, and when knowing somebody's traveling, that makes it even much more special. They take the time. And joining us from that lovely vacation capital, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, is Marguerite Flemming. Hello, Marguerite. Tell us a little bit about yourself of Growth Finder Pro Services.
Okay, good morning, everyone, from the lovely city of Toronto. So Growth Finder, for myself, I've been doing marketing services for quite a while. And Growth Finder Pro is, and I've worked with hundreds of companies, what we are doing is taking offline successful processes that work in the real world, and we are bringing them into the digital space, specifically online. So we're looking at how do you build relationship, how do you build referral marketing, how do you reach out on and do lead generation using digital, and using channels such as LinkedIn, which is our primary channel, and also others like Facebook and Instagram, etc. Where are your customers? What are they looking for? So looking forward to contributing to the conversation today about that segment of Omni Channel, which is the online piece.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for attending. And last but certainly not least, from probably the most funnest city in the world, Montreal, is Eric Nycamp, founder and CEO of Mamoth Group in Montreal. Eric, tell us a little bit more, please, and welcome.
Sure. Thank you for having me on. My name is Eric Nycamp, aka Fritz as well. We built a platform for the automotive space back in 2011, started in 2010, and it was a multi-channel platform to help dealerships basically communicate with their database. So it was way at the beginning when we were starting the database mining, and also basically the point is to book appointments back then, but now we're leveraging the data, really tackling preferences, doing bidirectional communications, mostly for SMS, email, and also voice. But we touch into social platforms as well. But again, it's to focus on three aspects, and that's basically to find new customers for dealerships, to take care of their current customers, which is their database, and also to help and rebuild a relationship with their lost customers for dealerships that have had customers in their database since like 1985. So that's our core focus, to rebuild all of that stuff.
Terrific. So as everybody can see, we have a really nice cross-section of people joining us here with some experience all over the map here. I have a question for all the guests, and we'll just go one by one. But to everybody, as OEMs and dealers move toward more omni-channel processes like Tesla, and there are more customer touch points than ever before, how can dealers choose the right products, train their teams to use them in the most effective way in 2020 and beyond? David, if you could start, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this great line that every good movie, every great movie is two great scenes and no bad scenes. And so I think when you right now we're in this like customer experience revolution where we're understanding that the experience and the ways customers experience our business is everything. I love the framework of looking at your processes. How do you make two great scenes and no bad scenes? So when you're evaluating things, one of the things people are inclined to do is just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Okay, we're going down this way and we're going down this way. That generally doesn't create great movies. The art of creating a great movie is very iterative, and it's identifying, okay, what are my bad scenes, and how does the software or this vendor or this product address my bad scenes? It doesn't necessarily need to make them great. It just needs to make them not bad. And then what are the two moments I want to make great, and how am I going to make those great? So I love that framework for evaluating, where in your process do you need to fix, and then what are the specific applications you can do to fix those bad scenes.
Terrific. How about yourself, Jason? Your take on this as they move toward more omni-channel marketing processes like Tesla. Jason?
You're muted, Jason.
I'm muted. There we go. Hopefully I can remember to unmute myself. Yeah, I mean, I think everything comes down to the consumer experience. And I think what David was touching on is that you have two different interaction points that are happening today. You have one from a digital side, and then you have one from the physical. And I think giving consumers the ability to not only go through the process of purchasing a car, but looking at the different ways of communication and engagement, right? We always look at a lead, and we always tell our dealers, every lead you get into your CRM by default is dead, right? And if you have that mentality that every lead I get into my CRM is dead, I think it changes the idea of what you're trying to do and the importance of what we believe in as far as engagement, right? Because every lead is dead that comes into the CRM until you get feedback, right? Until you get engagement from that customer, phone call, a text, an email. Now that consumer is alive, or that lead is alive, and now I can communicate with them and articulate with them and get these different touch points that I want. So, yeah, I mean, kind of what David was saying, it's about the experience digitally, physically, and then taking a look at that lead or that consumer in a little bit of a different approach and mentality. I think is very helpful in getting a consumer down the funnel.
Great, thank you. Marguerite, just to quickly touch on again, how could dealers choose the right products and train their teams to use them in the most effective way in 2020 and beyond?
Right. Well, one of the things that I noticed that most dealers are not doing really well is using really happy customers for referrals and online, I mean, in particular. They don't have a process to capture the love. When somebody picks up a car, they're excited, right? And they're happy and they're happy with the experience. They haven't captured that moment, and that is one of the most powerful sales tools that they have, and they don't capture it, and it's not there. So people can't see what the result is of the process of working with that dealer or with that rep. So there's the power of social media is in its ability to tell the story and to build a relationship over time. Buying a car is an experience, right? It's not just a transaction. It is a transaction. Obviously, people can buy it online. They don't need to interact with anyone. But most people prefer to have the experience. And that experience is something that they'll pay a premium for sometimes. Okay. If they trust you, if they like you, they're going to come and work with you. They're going to come and ask specifically for you at the dealership. And one thing I think dealers could do a lot better is use their digital channels. Use a business-to-business channel like LinkedIn, which most dealers are not using as effectively as they can. Use Facebook, use Instagram to talk about the one-on-one experience of your most happy customers, and use that as a point of reference to start referring business. Now you're going to talk. We've talked a little bit about the customer journey. We'll probably talk about that, on an ongoing basis throughout this whole show. But social media allows you to touch base with clients regardless of where they are in that buying process, and connect them with you as that trusted advisor on purchasing a car. And I think that's what people are missing in the car buying experience, is that relationship. So in the real world, if I have a great buying experience, I'm going to go and tell my friends and family about that experience, right? We haven't been able to capture that really well online. And the people who do it do really, really well. But very few people have captured that essence of having this great customer experience, demonstrating that, building relationship online with people. And that's one of the things that we help do, because we try and focus in on that one piece of it, because it connects both the awareness and the selection piece. It connects all the way through the buyer process for people. So whatever platform you end up putting those messages on, I mean, that's a separate conversation. Depends on who your customer is, right? Where your customers are. So you need to do a little bit of a deep dive on and do some business intelligence on where are your customers, right? If you are selling certain type of cars, your customers might be more on Facebook as opposed to more on LinkedIn. You got to figure out where they are and then design a program for them. So I don't know if that answered the question, but I think it did.
Definitely answers it. And just, we've had a few people join us a little late before the start of the question. The question is, as OEMs and dealers move toward a more omni-channel process, like Tesla, and there are more customer touch points than ever before, how can dealers choose the right products, and train their team to use them the most effective way in 2020 and beyond. Eric, if you could answer after that long-winded question.
Sure. First of all, I agree with all three, what they mentioned before. I just want to add, though, I think we've all been around we've been on the internet for longer than 10 years. And the internet and anything social right now is extremely noisy. And to capture someone's attention, you got to be talking their language, and you have to understand them. So I know a lot of dealerships and OEMs, they're just constantly talking at customers, just constantly one way. But I truly believe, like what Marguerite was mentioning, that one, you have to really understand and know your customer. Just because you're a one type of dealership and you sell just, a few models, but there's segments of every one of them. And I mean, so many times I've seen, campaigns where someone just purchased a minivan 4 months ago, but they're full on advertising. I'm selling you a truck right now. It's like, guy, you won't sell anything. Like, keep that money and push it, wait a couple of years, use your database and plan everybody out. Try to know your customer, know who they are. Are they a minivan person? Are they a truck person? A sports car? And now you can build these omni-channel different touch points because you know who they are. And out of all of this noise, they're going to hear what you're saying because you're talking directly to them. So that's just my point.
Very good point. Ian, you got a question?
Yeah, the metric in the industry seems to be somewhere between 10 and 15% of the leads turn into buyers from your initial inquiry. How can dealers engage the remaining, say, 85% and convert these leads into sales in 2020 and beyond, in your opinion? Maybe we could start with Fritz this time, or Eric.
Sure. To get those other ones, I totally believe I was just writing a note down. I agree with Marguerite that relationship building is extremely important, and leverage. If you can give an awesome customer service, I've seen some dealerships that have horrible feedback on their dealerships. It's really hard to build on that, but there's some that have awesome testimonials on there. So definitely, if you can leverage on testimonials and word of mouth and then start building on, to be able to share and to use relationships from your current customers, you can really grow that out, and you can use any channel for that, right? So if you can capture a testimonial and leverage on that, that's golden, and it costs you that much.
Exactly. Great answer. Jason, maybe you want to jump in on this one?
So you're talking about the 85% that we don't close. What can you do with it? I think if you look at the industry as a whole, internally, dealers will neglect leads that are older than 14 days. And that is a shame, because what we find, and I think David could probably vouch for this as well from a data perspective, what we find is that consumers that come into a dealership website are normally low funnel, and they're in market between 24 hours out to 90 days. And, that 85%, you need to have a process in place, omni-channel or communication engagement, that is making sure that your team is following up with a consumer throughout the entire 90-day period. And you'll see that 15% increase dramatically if you can continue having some type of engagement with that consumer. Follow up, even if you don't hear from them, right? Even if you don't hear from them, keep following up. People forget that people have a life to live. They get very busy. Inboxes get bombarded with emails. Just because somebody put in a lead on Thursday doesn't mean a week later they're not interested in the car. Just life happens, and you got to continue to follow up and get in front of these people and remind them that you're here, and make sure that you're doing like Marguerite said. Make sure you're talking your value propositions. Consumers are happy with us, etc. Get them involved in the process again. We can't take it personal when somebody doesn't write us back or call us back or text us. So I think that's a number one point there.
Great point. David, maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'll speak to it with two points here. First is if you look at the definition of close rate. Close rate is usually defined by, okay, the leads that are being calculated, the leads in my CRM divided by the leads I sold, and this is the 10 to 15% number. The hidden variable in that is what percentage of leads did not make it into your CRM, right? And a dealer gets really 4 sources of leads. They get phone calls, they get forms, they get chats, they get walk-ins. So like as an example, we built some technology, it's called our safety net, where we measure and report on and put into the system the leads that don't make it in. About a third of sales phone calls don't make it into the CRM. The shocking thing in automotive is about 8% of forms that are filled out on your website actually don't make it into your CRM. So you show me a dealer that has a 20 or 25% close rate, I'll show you a dealer that's not logging 30 or 40% of their leads in their CRM. So first piece is understanding what percentage of leads are actually making it in. Are my phone calls, forms, and chats actually making it into my system? Then when they make it in, we're talking about a lot of the consumer experience, and that traditionally what's happened is we've put in place these very linear processes of, okay, here's how I work a lead from 0 to 14 days. That's not consumer focused. That's not, from the point of view of the consumer, that's about you. That's not about them. One of the things we did in the last about year and a half is, we collect all this data. We know everything that the person has done on the website. We know every vehicle they've looked at. We know what's dropped in price, what's raised in price, what's changed. So we were always obsessed with getting that information in the hands of the salesperson. And we said, what if we just went directly to the consumer and notified them the same way Walmart does, the same way Amazon does? Hey, this is dropped in price. This is here's new inventory that you haven't seen, and do it automatically. What we've seen has been outstanding, that just that simple communication that's just focused on the product, not focused on, come in, when are you going to test drive? When are you going to give me the information I want from you? But hey, here's the information you were looking for. Here's new inventory, dropped in price, speaking their language. Just doing that increases close rate about 27% without the dealer doing anything. So I think when you think about how to do it, it's really 2 pieces. It's one, understand your true close rate, make sure the leads that you're getting are actually making it into your CRM. Traditionally, when you do that, the first thing that will happen is your true close rate will actually go down when you start logging more leads. And then how do you now build it up through better communication and better touch points with the consumer?
And last but not least, Marguerite, thanks very much. Marguerite, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm on mute. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to build on what David was saying, because I thoroughly agree with him. But one thing that I've noticed in the buying experience is that when you go in, or when you are, they're not really focused in on getting your social media information or connecting with you on social media when you start your interaction at a dealership. Okay, and maybe some dealers are and some are not, but most so far I found don't make that part of the initial connect. Let's connect on Facebook. Let's connect on LinkedIn. They don't do that. And the reason why in an omni-channel conversation this is so important is because some people are very social media focused. They spend a lot of their day on social media. And if you can't get them any other way, you can get them on social media. You can send them a LinkedIn message. They're going to probably respond to that maybe more than an email. Okay, you can send them a picture. You can send them information on a Facebook group or a Facebook message that they'll respond to, because that's where they spend more of their time and they feel more comfortable with that. So talking about omni-channel is not just the telephone. It is that. It's not just the website. It is that. You know what I mean? It's all of these different channels working together. Social media becoming a very important piece of this, because people are spending so much time there. So what do we do with that 85%? We engage with them at the very beginning. When you start the conversation, as David was saying, and just to play on that, keep connected with us, even if you're not ready to buy today, even if you decided to buy from somebody else or buy a different model, stay connected with us, because you never know, right? Maybe there's a sale, maybe your brother needs a car, maybe there's somebody else that you know. And start thinking about this as not just a transactional sale, but as a building of a relationship over time. Because selling anything, cars, houses, insurance, is about building that trust and building that relationship and building the awareness so that they remember you when the time comes up or there's a conversation that comes up. They'll say, yeah, you know what, I remember this guy I saw on social media, he seems really great. Maybe you should give them a call, or give her a call. And that is why people do that type of omni-channel advertising, because they're really fighting for this awareness over time. So when we talk about doing all this good work internally, you have to do that, but building upon it, part of your sales process should be connecting online with people immediately as soon as they walk in the door, as soon as they have that interaction, encouraging them to do this. Putting, connecting with them on Twitter, connecting them with them on LinkedIn, connecting with them on Facebook at the very, very beginning. Because as they start not paying as much attention to email, they'll still be paying attention to their social media. Okay.
Question from the audience.
Yeah.
What percentage of total sales, in your opinion, are referral driven? And what's the show percentage on appointments, in your opinion? So whoever wants to speak first.
For show percentage on appointments, I haven't looked at that in a while. When we last looked at it, I think we saw, generally between 45 and 65% was what appointments were showing at. For referrals, I'm assuming they're talking about like customer referrals.
Yeah.
The close rate. And again, I mean, I think that the true close rate depends on at what point are you putting in that lead, right? If somebody gives you a customer referral and you log it right then and say, okay, I'm putting this in my CRM, I'm going to start to work this, it's going to close at a lower rate than if you follow up with the customer referral, sort of get that initial information. We see in like a lot of rural dealerships, customer referrals are primarily their business. I mean, it's a huge chunk of their sales, much more so than in the high density dealerships.
One of the attendees, George, who's been on the show before, he works at Stouffville Toyota, does a lot of social media posting. He says 80% of his customers are referrals.
Yeah.
Really high number, but I think that's because of his social media presence.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, do you have any thoughts there? Can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. No
from the dealerships, we don't really get that type of information back from them, so I wouldn't know. I would say on average should be around 50 to 60, but what George is mentioning, that's pretty awesome. Again, it's all on the relationship, right? So if you offer a great relationship, there's no reason why someone should at least try you out. And if you are still awesome, the same as the previous customer, you should carry that through. So I know that a referral from a really satisfied customer weighs way more than a really cool, slick social ad or anything like that. So I can go with those numbers.
Yeah.
Jason, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can add to that is, everything is always about the experience that you provide to a customer. So if you can provide one that is above average and great, and your consumers can, notify their friends and family and people around them, then you're obviously doing a great job at bringing them in and closing them. So yeah, we'll continue.
And Marguerite, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what George's experience, right? Buying a car is something that you only do every couple of years, and it's a big purchase for most people. And they want somebody who they can trust. So unless they have an existing relationship, or they're very transactional, there's some people who just love to do all that deep research and buy a car specifically that way. But for most people who only buy a car every 5 years or whatever it is, or 10 years, then that trust factor becomes incredibly high. Like that, this is a big part of the decision making that they're making. Is, do I like you? Do I trust you in this conversation? So this the focus in my mind should really be on that, especially when you move into social media. Okay, it's fine to show, you know, cars and inventory and all that kind of good stuff when people are in the point of the buyer journey where they've already made the decision to purchase and now they're just making the selection. Okay, but that 85% of people who were just thinking about it or investigating or starting to do their research, they don't have a relationship with anyone yet. Okay, that's your opportunity. That's the moment where you can stand out amongst everyone else and say, I'll take care of you. Okay, I have your best interest at heart. And I think that's where, you know, the point in the buyer journey, which is much earlier, you have a really great opportunity to do those customer experiences, the referrals, the marketing on, you know, how well you take care of your clients. That'll have a bigger impact and a higher conversion rate for you.
Yeah, I mean, we had George on a couple times. He does some crazy videos, but more importantly, I think he's just a really genuine guy on his videos. He doesn't do editing. The takes are a little bit interesting, but you know, more importantly, he supports his community, and I think that's why he's so successful with referrals.
I would buy a car from George right off his video. So, especially in his bathing suit in Greece, those are classics.
It was a few years ago, but we were looking, you know, we measure all of the traffic coming from different sources and what percentage creates a lead and creates a sale. And you know, for years, we've generally seen that social media is not a very strong lead driver that creates strong leads. And even though people were diverting sort of a disproportionate amount of money into social media, and we were showing the data, and all of a sudden there was 2 accounts that stood out where they crushed everybody else. They were at like 10 or 11% of their stuff was coming from social media. And I didn't know who these people were. And so I was at an OEM. And so I said, does anyone know these dealerships? I've never seen these numbers before. And one person raised their hand and they said, yeah, I'm very familiar with that dealership on the top, but they don't pay for social media. They just do community posting. They support their community. They do all this stuff out there. Yeah. And what we saw was that was the driver of success. And then when we went to the next one down that was close to it, it was the same story. It was, hey, I don't think they have a very strong paid strategy. I think what they are is they're very active in their community. And they found ways to share that. And it would, you know, even now, years later, we still see the same thing. The people that do well with social media, it's about supporting their community, about supporting their people. And it's how you move that strategy into leads and referrals.
So Jeff, in sense of the time, I think we got to go on with some other questions. So go ahead.
Thank you. Very interesting how this discussion that everybody's having is feeding on to the next question I have, because years ago, the focus was on lead response time and how many seconds, how many minutes, how many hours did it take to get to somebody. Today, based on your comments, it's all about engagement and being to help the customers to, funny enough, drive appointments, differentiate your dealership from everybody else, and sell more cars. So what are the biggest mistakes that dealers make when working with customers and leads today? Eric, we might as well jump to you. You're the last one to speak. Or maybe not, Eric.
Am I still on mute? Okay. Well, if we stay on the same theme as building relationship and communication, I mean, I've been in technology for I don't know how many years now. And on some of our platforms on another company we process about over 25 million SMS per month for our customers to the end users. But I think still it's the quality of what they're saying, to who they're saying, and sometimes sending more or screaming more doesn't really convert to more sales, but really tapping into what you're saying to the intended target. So you might have one particular vehicle, but you can say that story multiple different ways to tackle multiple different people. So in a dealership, I mean, I'm listening to everybody on the panel, and dealerships, from my experience, they're all spread out in different types of teams. Sometimes they have a huge internet team where they're really focused on internet leads and everything digital marketing, which is fantastic. And then some have nothing and they're related to just phone calls. So every dealership is different, but if they can really take some time to go into their database and see who their current customers are, because that's gold. It's right there. And then leverage whatever they can from that and build stories towards it. So just like, I forget who was mentioning it, was David with the stats. Just free posts, but you're really in the community is something super awesome. So that's about it.
Terrific. Marguerite, how about yourself? What's your take on the biggest mistakes that dealers are making with leads and customers?
Well, when you're looking at the digital channels, I think that there's lots to learn, right? There's a couple of things that they're doing really well, as Erica said. I think that they do advertising really well. I think they know how to do that. They do, they have inventory of cars and they do that part really, really well. What I haven't seen that they do well is actually ask people for the opportunity to connect with them and to come in and build a relationship. So what I mean by that is if you're connected with somebody on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, that's one piece of the pie, right? But being able to use that to reach out to those people and invite them to come from the offline world to the in-person world is what I don't see people doing consistently really well. Okay. And so it's great to build a following. It's great to advertise. When you do that, you're talking to people who are further down the buyer journey, people who are ready to purchase, right? Now, the people who are earlier, that 85% who are just thinking about it, maybe there's something that piqued their interest. We haven't actually done a great job of interacting and developing a good one-on-one relationship with those types of people. And so advertising is only one piece of the digital marketing pie, okay? Bringing people into a sales conversation when they're not like immediately ready. So this is about the relationship build is something I think there is an opportunity. Okay, there's a big gaping hole there where if somebody were to take that time to say, there's somebody who's really active on LinkedIn, they're commenting on my posts. Can I invite them to come in? Okay, maybe they can do a test drive, maybe whatever, right? We can figure out a way to bring that offline person in line. I think there's a big gaping hole there when you think about the customer journey. What are you doing, right? When you're thinking about purchasing a car, you're out there looking, you're interacting, you're talking. Now, you may not be perfectly ready to buy yet, but you might be willing to have a conversation, okay? And the people who capture those leads early, I believe there's a great opportunity kind of right there.
Great points. Thank you. Excuse me. Jason, actually, I know a bit about your business. We've had you on a couple of times, did a vendor speak, and I know you built your business on the big mistakes dealers make. What about on this topic? What are their big mistakes when working with lead customers and leads?
Well, I think their biggest mistake is thinking that their CRM is actually a CRM, number one. The CRM is really a glorified task manager for their sales staff, and it's not really built to work the customer through the life cycle of them being part of that dealership and that community. So I think first and foremost is, management has to understand that they don't really have a customer relationship tool implemented within their dealership that they would need. I think, everything comes down, I think we've all harped on this about engagement, but it all comes down to the experience. I mean, we have, tons of data as well on consumer behavior and how people look at vehicles and source types and sales and all of the data across the board. And, when you look at the sales data, most of the sales data is happening within your ASA and your PMA, right? It's not happening out 25, 35 miles out of your dealership. So I think you've got to just kind of, dealers have to take, kind of a laser focused approach on how can they be more efficient. I think that's one of the things that, the pandemic has forced dealerships to become is more efficient and kind of looking at, what can I do better with my customer base? How can I really create a real management tool that can manage my customers from sale to service to repeat customer and then referrals as well in there. And I think that's really important. I think that's really important for a dealer.
Fantastic. Thank you. Last but not least, David, tell us, from your position, what are the big mistakes that they make? But very interesting, there was a comment from Jay who said lead response time is important, but quality over quickness, in his opinion, it's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that like in what are the mistakes the dealer can make? I'll reframe the question to say, what are the opportunities they have to sort of succeed in this new world? And one of the ways I like to look at things as a technologist, we always look at technology as, what is it giving us? Oh, look, we can track people, we can do this, we can do this. The best question is what have we lost, and understanding what are the things that we're losing. We're talking about relationships and the ability to form relationships with customers. But what we've lost with technology is actually we've made it harder to form the relationship. We've put all the information out there. We've given them every product, every price. We've put everything online. And we've asked, why are our salespeople and BDCs less successful? The consumer no longer feels like they need them. They have everything they need. And so what we've lost is we've made it more difficult on our teams to actually add value in those interchanges. And as a result, when you do that, you find that it's harder to move initiatives. It's harder to squeeze that extra success you need every month. You have higher turnover because people feel less successful. They say, what am I doing all day? I'm doing these repetitive tasks that aren't giving me any value. So where I think the opportunity, where I've always been a big believer, and is in connecting, being able to empathize with your customers is the heart of a relationship. Customers no longer tell us everything they want. That's not how they display information anymore. And in fact, that's annoying in the customer experience. Ian, if I get on the phone to talk to you and I have to ask you 20 questions of all information that you've already done on the website online, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm saying, get me off this call. So when we look at how to advance the relationship, we have to say, how do you put the power back in the hands of the salespeople? And I believe your websites generate a ton of data that allows them to do that. It's just a matter of connecting those things and saying, wait, if I'm going to understand Ian and I'm going to empathize with Ian as a customer, I need to understand everything he's done on my website. I need to see, oh wait, he's only looked at vehicles under this price. He really focused on these two vehicles. I now can get on a phone call and quickly help him and quickly add value without having to go through 20 questions.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. So I've got a quick question for Jason. Obviously, the certificate platform is a great tool to help dealers stand out from the competition and create a better experience. Where do you see that really moving forward? That conversation?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at a lead, right? We look at a lead as by default it being dead, and what we want to do is we want to increase engagement. Just very simple approach here, right? You kind of look at, I'm not going to go into detail, but you have only about 5 different points of touching that is happening within the entire process from digital to buying. And so our certificate platform is an automated email platform that will send a consumer a quote unquote certificate from the dealership 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it looks very good. The experience, the UI, the UX looks like an app, a lot of technology behind it. But it creates urgency. It gives a consumer transparency, something tangible, etc. And we've done a study with a large dealer group in California. And what they noticed was that, half of the leads over 3 months got a certificate, the other half didn't. In the half that did, they saw a 23% increase in appointments and a 35% increase in closing rate. And our platform also provides what we call a lead report. So our lead report will provide the dealership with all the information about consumers. digital footprint, right? What cars they looked at, when they looked at them, how often they looked at them, what location they came from, et cetera. So, they have a very good footprint of what the consumer has done within the website that they're on. But it is also, the certificate platform is also creating this urgency for a customer to reach out and engage with the dealer.
Thanks, Jason.
So for Eric, excuse me, it's very funny because the world has changed, and the terrible term millennial people communicate by texting. And quickly tell us the good, bad, and the ugly of texting, and is texting enhancing the ROI for dealers?
Good question. The answer is yes and no. It just depends on how you use texting. There's tons of people that are using texting in their dealerships or just in retail in general. But like I said, a lot of people are just doing it one way, and it's at people. What we implemented back 10 years ago, it had to be bi-directional. So it had to be a very targeted messages to the end person, and they can reply to it regardless if they want to, confirm an appointment, they're unavailable, but they're still interested. They're in market, but literally, I'm not available for this event or this special offer that you're doing. Or of course, have to be compliant, which is, to unsubscribe. The other point is, if you are going to be bi-directional, either it's going to be automated and it has to be fine-tuned to listen to what people are texting back, or you have to have really good people on staff, not 24 hours a day, because that's almost impossible, but like we've all been saying throughout this whole show, user experience, relationship building, all of these things are extremely important, and tech doesn't really have anything to play with it except to magnify that you want to build a relationship with. So text message for me, it might be old technology, but it still cuts through all of the clutter, the emails, the social media. Your phone could be still locked. It's locked, and you still get your text message right on top of the lock screen, and you can reply to it. And yes, I'm in. No, I'm not available. Maybe next week. So I think there was a big resurgence in text messaging in the past few years, but no, I think it's still important in the market today, not just in automotive, but in many different business aspects as well.
Fantastic. Excuse me. I appreciate that. Marguerite, what's your opinion on social media platforms? You talked about LinkedIn, but are there other platforms that you can reach out as well? Well, we know there are, but what's the benefit of them?
Right. Well, because there's so many of them, it's really about getting to know what your customer, where they are, right? So you have to do your segmentation. You have to know where they are. We see that dealerships that are doing a lot of work with business people, then LinkedIn is probably where you need to spend some more time. Okay, because people will respond. The response rate on LinkedIn messaging is quite high. So if people are not responding to you on other channels, on email, perhaps if they're not if they're not buying right away, so that maybe you don't have a text message relationship with them, they will respond on social media. So Facebook messaging is the #1 messaging system in the world. It is powerful. People use it very, very well. LinkedIn messaging, again, knowing your market segment, very, very powerful way to keep track and keep touch with people. Now, the nice thing about LinkedIn, again, it's the biggest business to business, database in the world. And if you think about it as a database, you can actually do some really interesting marketing from LinkedIn using their search capabilities. You can really pinpoint people who are in your neighborhood, et cetera, build some relationship with them, and then use the messaging feature within LinkedIn to connect with them. So there's so many different pieces. I'm not going to tell you that there's one digital platform that's better than the other. I think that they have different purposes, different uses for different audiences. You know, we like LinkedIn because I think it's a business to business conversation. If you have this particular market, we find that dealerships are not using LinkedIn very well. Okay, not using it as efficiently and effectively as they can. There's lots to do on Facebook as well. It's the biggest connect, 2 billion people. So, you've got an audience there if you want to take a look at it and start using it. As you're building out your strategy, think about social media as part of is that one layer that takes you all the way through the customer journey. Okay, this is not just about when people are coming in to actually look for a car. This is before, in the middle, and after. Right, your social media presence needs to be connected with people all the way through. So it's like a lifetime relationship with your customers.
Terrific. Ian, do you have something to add?
Yeah, David, I was just curious. I mean, obviously, Four Eyes has a lot of different tools. What have you seen as the biggest mistakes that maybe Four Eyes helps dealers with?
I think that the tough part is moving to understanding the behavior of the customers requires some amount of behavior change at the dealerships. In that, so many of us SaaS companies, software as a service companies, we require the dealer to do something. And one of the things in your first question, you talked about how to evaluate tools. One of the big questions is, what am I going to have to do to make this thing work, right? Like,
Exactly.
Because if it requires too much behavior change, you're not going to be able to get there. So we started building our tools in two segments: tools that required behavior changes and tools that don't require behavior changes. And saying, how can we build a set of tools on one side that doesn't require the dealer to do anything, but can add value very quick? And that's where we set up the things where we'll automatically communicate pricing and inventory updates to the consumer without the dealer doing anything, all tied into their CRM. In COVID, and one of the things that has changed our trajectory, we started offering free trials. We still do. Say, hey, 60 days, try it out, see if it works. And that's really been nice because it's given us a good chance to interact with the consumer, get a feeling for how they work without necessarily putting a sale transaction in the middle of that relationship. So it's led to better, healthier relationships on our part, because we're picking the dealers as much as they're picking us in that 60-day trial. So I don't know if I answered the question. I think that from a process perspective, I think dealers need to be very aware of when a vendor comes in with a flashy technology, what is it really asking them to do every day, and are they going to actually complete those things?
Okay. And since it's the time, we've kind of run out the clock. So Jeff, did you have any final thoughts?
Well, I have to say this was an outstanding show. Thank you, everybody, for joining the interaction. The information was incredible, and you may have actually outdone your necessity to speak directly to people. They can just all call you and say, sign me up. But thank you, everybody, for attending. I do want to mention this Friday, we have Vendor Speak with the famous Janice Showers of the Car Girls, and she's going to talk about her products and something that's actually very, very much, as we mentioned earlier with our guests, is ladies in the car business are becoming the great power, and the Car Girls is certainly a tremendous item. So this Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Mountain, 11 Central, noon Eastern, and of course 1 o'clock on the Halifax thing, just for our great friend John Latka. So thank you very much, Ian. I'll leave it with you, and thanks again for attending.
Yep. And if anyone's obviously available next week, we are going to be talking about digital retail next week. So stay tuned for more details. We're going to have John from Moto Insight, Michelle from Roadster, Jason talking about Nabthat, and then, of course, Michael Bilson from Pulsar. That'll be next Monday, same time, same Zoom ID. Have yourself a great week. Thanks for attending. Thanks to all the guests. And have yourself a great day. Afternoon if you're out east.
Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting everyone.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again.